It's Trial Tuesday, and today we're talking about workplace discrimination. Attorney David Aylor joining us with more on LGBT discrimination and what to do if you're a victim. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing fine. This has been a lot of talk throughout a lot of states.
Right.
And what has been going on. Let's first talk about workplace discrimination. What goes on with that?
Well, obviously, this is something we've seen for decades. And what we're really seeing in the news a lot more now is, discrimination based off people's, gender and their gender preferences as far as their sexuality. Transgender specifically is something we've seen a lot. And I know at my office particularly, we're getting a lot of calls. And in reality, this type of discrimination is no different than what we've seen in the past with religious discrimination or, of course, racial discrimination. And so really the guidelines are similar and the same in that what you need to do as far as if this is happening to you and how you should report it. The documentation part is really difficult
let's get into
to do.
that because the documentation is critical, because if you're just saying, well, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago this person said this or did that, or maybe it was 3 or 4 weeks, you really need to be specific on dates, times, and exactly what was said or done.
And a lot of this, particularly with the LGBT and the transgender folks, is that you're getting a lot of slurs that are being used, and it might not be a supervisor or superior, it'll be a coworker. And these are things that obviously you would want to report to people within your employers and those type of things, but also you want to document it. What I tell people to do is almost like a diary or a journal. This happened on these days, so this is a pattern of this type of behavior. You can also show that you're reporting it, that it's happening, and important to show that if the employer is not doing anything about it, there's not being any recourse, there's no action being taken, and not just that it's coming out of nowhere. Because as we've talked about before, the main part about these things is people are pretty intelligent. They're not, putting these things in emails. It's not date and time stamped. It's usually oral. There's not a lot of witnesses. So there's a problem with the discrimination. So, but if you've got 9 months of documentation where this is occurring, that's not something that somebody's probably just created up in their own imagery. But also if it's happening and you do have witnesses, other people around, it was at lunch, it was at a break, it was out somewhere, and you had other people that heard it that day, you write their names down, maybe you remind them, ask them if they'll sign a document. You almost have to build your own case while it's happening, unfortunately, because it's so hard to sort of put it all together if in fact you don't have the help of others.
And this is becoming more and more of a number of cases, not only here in Charleston, but all around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that would have a case, but they really lack the proof, or at least they lack the proof that can be shown that you'd be able to actually go forward with some sort of civil litigation.
Can you open up and tell us about maybe some of the cases that have gone to trial and what has happened? Yeah,
what you often see is, there's going to be some, damages as far as, the standpoint of what actually has happened from, the mental side of it, the mental anguish and stuff, and where that's put this person and where it's put them in as far as their employment, and they've had to quit the job and trying to find a job with the equal, pay and equal status. But then also you have the punitive side of it. What has the employer really done? Did they really ever do anything? Did they have notice of it? The notice is key, and that's where the reporting comes in. But also, if you actually have some real proof, black and white proof, a lot of times it may not come from the emails, because we've seen so many people caught in the past. People are smarter than that, but what you do see is you see people that will text message. These text messages will come a lot of times after work, maybe after the people are a little bit looser, if they may be drinking or that sort of thing. They'll say things over text in a much more informal way that they probably wouldn't write in a work email. Those come into play and definitely can help your case. Similar things that they'd say in text is what they'll say off the cuff during the day orally. Now you've got it in writing. That's really going to help strengthen your case.
And we're out of time, but anytime you text and erase it, and anytime you send an email and it's erased, it's always still out there somewhere.
And it's going to come back and bite you every time.
How can folks get a hold of you, Dave?
Easiest way is my office is 577-5530.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
We've got more of Low Country Live coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.